FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
On November 13th, Attorney General Eric Holder announced that instead of appearing before military tribunals, 5 suspected terrorists, then held in Guantanamo, I guess as we shoot this, they're still in Guantanamo, will be tried in an ordinary federal court in New York City. One of the 5 is Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, by his own admission, the mastermind behind the planning of the 9/11 attacks. I quote John Yoo in an article he published in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Trying Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in civilian court will be an intelligence bonanza for al-Qaeda and the hostile nations that will view the U.S. intelligence methods and sources that such a trial will reveal." Close quote. Explain.
Well, the Constitution requires that we have an open public trial for any criminal defendant tried by our government. One of the rights that every defendant has is to force the government to open up its files and say and provide all the information it has on the defendant. So this is not an uncommon tactic. People like Aldrich Ames and Hansen, other al-Qaeda members, the 9/11, the bombers of the first bombers of World Trade Center, they will all ask the government to put all that information in the public. This is going to be terrible for our efforts against al-Qaeda because we'll have to explain, for example, how do we know where Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was? Were we able to intercept his cell phones? Were we able to read his emails? How did we capture him? All of that is going to have to be made public. And if that's al-Qaeda will then have great insight into how we're able to keep track of them and how we're able to fight them.
Jim Comey and your former Justice Department colleague Jack Goldsmith in the Washington Post, quote, "In terrorist trials over the past 15 years, federal prosecutors and judges have gained extensive experience at protecting intelligence sources and methods." In other words, John, you relax. "Limiting a defendant's ability to raise irrelevant issues and tightly controlling the courtroom," close quote. Layman Robinson says this, a couple other lawyers say relax, don't worry about it.
I think the problem is they don't have examples on their side. I can point you to 2. The first is the trial of the blind sheikh.
Which was 495 roughly?
It was in the 90s.
All right.
And in the trial of the blind sheikh, the government had to turn over.
Masterminded the first bombing attack on the World Trade.
The
bomb that blew up in the parking lot. Okay, go ahead.
And the normal process, the government had to provide to the defense a list of all the co-conspirators, the people who we think were helping or conspiring with the defendants to advance their plot. It was a list of some 100-some people, 175, I think. And if you look at it, it was essentially all the people we thought were members of al-Qaeda. And that list was found in Osama bin Laden's safe house. It was just apparently faxed to him just a few weeks later. Think about what an amazing advantage that is for al-Qaeda to look at the list of everyone we think is a member.
All these covers have been blown, and now Osama knows it.
Exactly. And it also tells them who we haven't found yet either. It tells you what plots are ahead, which plots are not. Well, that's one example. The second, even better example is after 9/11. We captured this fellow named Zacarias Moussaoui, the fellow who wanted to learn how to take off in an airplane but didn't care about learning how to land them. And so our FBI, sharp as it is, identified that guy as a problem.
And he was, we now know he would have been the 20th hijacker, but for some logistical mix-up or something.
He didn't get on, wasn't able to get through the training, get to one of the planes. Moussaoui's trial went on for 4 to 5 years. Never saw a single proceeding before a jury because he spent all those years just asking, I want to see all the evidence you have on me. I want to see how you know I'm even a member of al-Qaeda. And he wrapped that court in knots. The only reason the trial ended was because he changed his mind and said, oh, I've decided to plead guilty. There was never any resolution of any of those questions about whether the government could actually try him without having to open up its intelligence files. And I think ultimately they would have had to. John Walker Lind, from just across the bay here, did the exact same thing, and because of that, the government had to reach a plea bargain.